the cameras flashed, the crowd froze, and just like that, Hollywood and the entire internet had a brand new obsession.
Oh, it is completely taking over everywhere.
Welcome to Starscope Report. Join Jordan and Jamie as they uncover Hollywood drama, music industry shakeups, and viral influencer scandals. From red carpet surprises to social media controversies, we dive deep into the stories behind the fame.
And today, we are doing a deep dive into a headline that basically broke the internet in May of 2026.
Seriously, my entire feed was just blowing up with this.
Right. The headline is, Alex Murdaugh's murder convictions have been overturned. He could go free.
Which is just wild. I mean, we're taking all the sources for this deep dive, the 27-page Supreme Court opinion, the major network coverage from CBS, The Guardian, and like all the viral social media reactions, and we are unpacking exactly how this happened.
Because it wasn't some brilliant lawyer trick that got him off.
No, not at all. So I was thinking about how to explain this, and it's kind of like, okay, imagine a massive, high-stakes scientific experiment.
That's right. I'm with you.
If a scientist drops a literal sandwich into a sterile petri dish, that $1 million experiment is trashed.
Oh, totally ruined.
Exactly. And it simply doesn't matter how obvious the results were going to be. The testing environment was contaminated. You have to throw the entire thing out and start over.
That is a really good way to frame it.
Right. Because in this case, the South Carolina Supreme Court decided that a local court official dropped a massive sandwich into the trial of the century.
A huge one. And they unanimously overturned the double murder convictions of disgraced former attorney Alex Murdaugh.
Which, I mean, sent an absolute shockwave through the legal community and, obviously, the true crime community online. We're talking about an extremely wealthy, highly publicized figure who is serving consecutive life sentences.
Yeah, for a crime that captivated the entire nation. I mean,
Yeah.
Celebrities were tweeting about it. Influencers were practically camping outside the courthouse.
It was a whole cultural moment.
It really was. And suddenly, those murder convictions are just wiped from the record.
The sheer shock value of that is off the charts. So our mission today is to separate the social media outrage from the actual legal reality.
Because there's a lot of misinformation flying around right now.
Oh, a ton. But before we get into the wild details of what this court official actually did, if you're loving these twists, make sure you're subscribed. We've got even crazier stories ahead in this deep dive.
For sure. So we really have to start with the primary reason this conviction was undone. As we said, it wasn't newly discovered DNA evidence.
Right.
It was the astonishing interference by a court official. Just to establish a timeline quickly, Murdaugh was originally convicted back in March 2023 for the June 2021 murders of his 52-year-old wife, Maggie, and his 22-year-old son, Paul.
At their massive Colleton County estate.
Exactly. And then, fast forward to May 13th, 2026. The South Carolina Supreme Court issues a 5-0 unanimous opinion reversing the denial of a new trial.
And what's really fascinating here, and I saw this highlighted in the legal analysis we pulled, is that the opinion was unsigned.
Yes, which is so important. When a Supreme Court issues an opinion that is unanimous and unsigned like that, it's a very powerful signal.
It's like they're speaking with one undeniable institutional voice, right?
Exactly. There is no dissenting opinion, no separate concurring thoughts. The legal violation here was so absolute that the entire court basically moved as a single entity to strike down the conviction.
And the sole architect of this massive reversal was a woman named Rebecca Hill, or Becky Hill.
Yep, the former Colleton County Clerk of Court.
And the justices, they really didn't mince words about her in their ruling. I have the quote right here. They literally accused her of putting her, quote, fingers on the scales of justice, thereby denying Murdaugh his right to a fair trial by an impartial jury.
Wow.
Yeah, and they called her actions breathtaking, disgraceful, and unprecedented in South Carolina.
I mean, Supreme Court justices do not use words like disgraceful lightly.
No, never.
Their language is usually highly measured, very clinical. So to use that kind of emotionally charged vocabulary tells you just how deeply she offended the foundational rules of the system.
See, here is what I keep getting stuck on, though. The role of a court clerk is supposed to be entirely administrative.
Strictly administrative.
Right. It's scheduling, it's managing paperwork, it's handling the daily logistics of the jury. It's kind of like being a referee in the Super Bowl. You are there to enforce the boundaries and keep the game moving.
Yeah, you don't play the game.
Exactly. What Becky Hill did is the equivalent of that referee secretly jogging over to the sidelines and whispering plays to one of the teams.
That is exactly what it is.
But wait, so if she wasn't allowed to, question witnesses or present evidence, what was she actually whispering to the jury?
Well, she was actively managing their perception of the evidence. And it wasn't just like a stray comment here or there. It was a sustained pattern. The sources detail highly specific instructions she gave to the jurors.
Oh, wow. Like what?
She told them not to be fooled by the defense.
Are you kidding?
No, seriously. She warned them that Murdaugh's lawyers would try to confuse you.
She is basically priming them to view the defense as inherently deceptive before the lawyers even open their mouths.
It goes even further. On the day Alex Murdaugh actually took the stand to testify in his own defense, which, is always the highest stakes moment of any criminal trial.
Oh, absolutely. The whole world was watching that.
Right. Well, she told the jury it was an epic day and specifically instructed them to watch his body language.
Okay, I want to pause on that because that crosses a massive, massive line.
It really does.
She isn't just managing logistics anymore. She is acting as a behavioral analyst for the prosecution.
Yeah, think about the closed universe of a trial. A jury is sequestered. Maybe not physically locked in a hotel the whole time, but intellectually sequestered.
Right.
The only information they are legally allowed to consider is the evidence formally presented in the courtroom, vetted by the judge, subjected to cross-examination.
Yeah, that's the whole point of a trial.
And the clerk of court is their shepherd. She controls their schedule, their meals, their access to the outside world. So when that shepherd tells them to watch his body language, she injects herself as an unsworn secret witness.
Providing outside commentary that the defense has absolutely zero opportunity to cross-examine.
Exactly. And the pressure didn't stop there. When deliberations finally began after this grueling 6-week trial, Hill allegedly told the jury, "This shouldn't take us long."
That is immense pressure coming from an authority figure, like hurry up and convict him.
Yep, and we know definitively that it had a chilling effect.
You do.
Yeah. In the 2024 appeals hearing, a sworn affidavit from a juror explicitly stated that they had questions about Murdaugh's guilt, but they ultimately voted guilty because they felt pressured by the other jurors.
Wow, when the clerk of court is tapping her watch telling you to hurry up, the presumption of innocence just completely evaporates.
It does. And that brings us to the bizarre, almost cinematic motive behind all of this.
Yes, I was just going to ask, why would a career administrator risk blowing up the biggest trial in state history?
Well, she was writing a book.
You literally cannot script that level of dark irony.
A true crime book titled Behind the Doors of Justice. The Murdaugh Murders.
Oh my gosh. And the Supreme Court caught it, right? I read that they mocked the title in a footnote of their decision.
They did. They noted that she was indeed quite busy behind the doors of justice, thwarting the integrity of the justice system.
The shade from the Supreme Court is real.
It's a stunning indictment.
Mm.
She recognized the immense public obsession with the case, the Netflix fame, the influencer buzz, and sought to capitalize on it financially by ensuring a swift, dramatic guilty verdict so her book would sell.
But the fallout for her was pretty severe.
Oh, yeah. The book was actually pulled from publication due to plagiarism.
Wait, really? Plagiarism, too?
Yep. And then Hill herself was arrested in May of 2025. She pleaded guilty to obstruction of justice, perjury, and misconduct in office. She got 3 years of probation.
That is just crazy. But wait till you hear what came next, because her tampering wasn't the only issue. During the appeals process, the prosecution tried desperately to save the conviction, right?
Yeah, they argued that, sure, her comments were inappropriate, but they were brief. They leaned heavily on the idea that the evidence against Murdaugh was incredibly strong anyway, so the verdict should just stand.
But if the state's case was truly that solid, why does the Supreme Court view a few passing comments from a clerk as a fatal blow to an entire 6-week trial?
Because the strength of the evidence is totally irrelevant if the mechanism used to evaluate it is broken. The Sixth Amendment guarantees the right to an impartial jury. That is an absolute constitutional bedrock.
Right.
Appeals courts do not have the luxury of saying, well, the defendant probably did it anyway, so no harm done.
Because that would create a terrifying loophole.
Exactly. If the court accepts that argument, it sets a precedent where the state could tamper with juries as long as prosecutors feel their case is strong enough to justify it.
Wow.
The process itself must be pristine. If the scale is rigged, you cannot trust the weight of the evidence, no matter how heavy it looks.
Okay, so while Becky Hill was covertly sabotaging the jury room, the Supreme Court pointed out that the trial judge was overtly sabotaging the courtroom.
This is such a huge part of the ruling.
Yeah, the 5-0 decision didn't just focus on the clerk. They took major issue with how the judge handled the actual evidence, which really brings the core weaknesses of the state's murder case right back into the spotlight.
It really does. The court unanimously found that the trial judge let the prosecution go far too long and far too deep into Murdaugh's financial crimes.
Because in a murder trial, introducing evidence of other separate crimes is highly restricted.
Very restricted. You can sometimes introduce it if it establishes a direct motive.
And the state's theory here was that Murdaugh was facing imminent financial ruin and exposure, so he murdered his family to basically buy time, derail the investigations, and generate sympathy.
Right, but the execution of that theory in court was completely disproportionate.
We are talking about the state spending 12.5 hours.
Over 10 days of the trial.
Yeah, 10 days detailing exactly how Murdaugh stole roughly $12 million from his clients and his own law firm.
In legal terms, evidence must be more probative, meaning it proves something directly relevant to the charge than it is prejudicial.
And spending 10 days proving someone is a massive fraudster in a murder trial just completely obliterates that line.
Completely.
Let's really dig into the human psychology of that, because this is where the trial completely derailed. There is a cognitive bias known as the horn effect. It's basically the opposite of the halo effect.
Okay, right.
It means that if you perceive one overwhelmingly negative trait in a person, your brain mathematically alters how it weighs everything else about them.
That makes total sense.
So if you force a jury to sit in a room for 12.5 hours listening to sworn testimony proving a man is a remorseless thief, a liar, someone who stole millions from vulnerable, injured clients, you have completely anchored their perception of him.
It shifts the jury's internal question from, did he pull the trigger, to, is he a monster?
Exactly.
Once you view someone as capable of profound sociopathic betrayal in their professional life, your brain makes a massive leap. It becomes so much easier to believe they are capable of the ultimate violent betrayal in their personal life.
Regardless of what the physical evidence actually shows.
Right. And the physical evidence, or rather the stark lack of it, was the drum the defense kept beating.
Because the crime scene was incredibly violent.
Extremely. Paul was shot with a shotgun, and Maggie was shot with a rifle at very close range.
Yet, investigators found absolutely no DNA and no blood spatter on Alex Murdaugh's clothing.
None. Furthermore, the murder weapons were never recovered.
Which is crazy for a case this high profile.
This is exactly why the state relied so heavily on circumstantial evidence, and why the financial crimes were so necessary to paint a picture of guilt. The absolute cornerstone of the prosecution's murder case was a cell phone video.
Oh, the Snapchat video?
Yes, the video taken by Paul at the property's dog kennels shortly before the murders. And Alex Murdaugh's voice can clearly be heard in the background.
Which completely destroyed his initial alibi.
Totally. He had repeatedly lied to law enforcement, claiming he was nowhere near the kennels that night.
And when he was confronted with the video during his testimony, he had to admit he lied.
But he blamed the lie on deep paranoia brought on by a severe, long-term addiction to opioid pills.
Right.
He claimed his drug-induced distrust of investigators made him lie about his whereabouts, but he adamantly maintained he did not murder his wife and son.
When you synthesize all of this, the stacking effect is just wild. You have a murder case built heavily on a circumstantial cell phone video, a defendant with a proven history of lying, a jury whose brains have been psychologically primed by 10 days of intense financial fraud testimony,
And a court clerk literally whispering in their ears to ignore the defense.
Yeah. When you look at the architecture of the trial like that, the Supreme Court's decision isn't a shock at all. It was an inevitability.
From a purely legal and constitutional standpoint, it was a deeply compromised trial.
But wait, later in the deep dive, we'll talk about the shocking twist nobody saw coming regarding his actual freedom. Because we really have to distinguish between the cold mechanics of the law and the visceral public perception.
Oh, absolutely.
Because when the headlines hit in May 2026 that Alex Murdaugh's murder convictions were thrown out, the internet did not care about the Horn effect or the Sixth Amendment.
No, people were furious.
According to sources like Parade that tracked the social media reaction, it was a tidal wave of outrage.
People felt betrayed by the institutions of justice.
I was reading the comments, and the cynicism was so thick, it was an endless stream of people saying money talks.
I saw a lot of comments like, there are two types of justice, one for the poor and one for the connected and privileged.
Yeah, another user wrote, if you got money and power, you can literally get away with murder.
And that reaction is entirely understandable given the optics. The public sees a wealthy, formerly powerful, legal scion slipping out of a life sentence on what they perceive to be a technicality.
But this is where we have to clarify the absolute concrete reality for you, the listener, because everyone is asking, will Alex Murdaugh go free?
Emphatically, no. He is not walking out of prison.
Right.
The overturning of the murder conviction has zero impact on the rest of his criminal record. Remember those massive financial crimes the judge let the state spend 12.5 hours on?
The $12 million he stole?
Yes. He previously pleaded guilty to those in a separate venue. He is currently sitting in a maximum security prison, serving a 40-year federal sentence and a concurrent 27-year state sentence solely for stealing that money.
So he will likely spend the rest of his natural life behind bars regardless of the murder charges.
Exactly. And as for those murder charges, South Carolina Attorney General Alan Wilson immediately released a statement saying they respectfully disagree with the Supreme Court's decision, but they are going to aggressively seek to retry Murdaugh for the murders of Maggie and Paul as soon as possible.
But here's the question that always pops up online when a retrial is announced. Why doesn't the double jeopardy clause prevent him from being tried again? I mean, he was already tried once.
It's a very common misconception about how the Fifth Amendment works. The double jeopardy clause protects you from being tried again for the same crime after an acquittal.
Oh, okay.
Right? The government cannot keep dragging you into court over and over until they get a jury that says guilty. However, if you are convicted and you appeal that conviction based on procedural errors, like a judge allowing highly prejudicial evidence or a clerk tampering with the jury.
And the appeals court agrees with you.
Right, they aren't declaring you innocent.
They are declaring that the trial itself was invalid.
Precisely. They are saying the mechanism of the trial was so broken that the result cannot be trusted. Therefore, the slate is wiped entirely clean. In the eyes of the law, the first trial functionally never happened.
Oh, wow.
Because it never happened, jeopardy has not technically attached in a way that prevents a new trial, so the state is fully permitted to start from scratch and try to secure a valid conviction.
So the state gets a do-over, but this time they're on notice. They have to play strictly by the rules. No 12-hour financial deep dives that psychologically anchored the jury, and absolutely no book-writing clerks policing the jury room.
Yeah, the defense team, Dick Harpootlian and Jim Griffin, actually released a statement echoing that sentiment. They said the Supreme Court's decision affirms that the rule of law remains strong in South Carolina, and they look forward to a new trial conducted consistently with the Constitution.
Stepping back to look at this whole bizarre saga, it is almost impossible to overstate the incredible irony here. The state of South Carolina pours untold resources into a multi-million-dollar trial that captivated the globe.
The whole world was watching.
They secure a double murder conviction against a man the public universally despises. And that entire monumental effort was undone not by a brilliant cross-examination, not by a surprise witness,
No.
but by a local court clerk trying to juice the sales of a plagiarized true crime book.
It really highlights the ultimate fragility of the justice system. We like to think of the law as this impenetrable objective monolith, but it relies on human beings to execute it.
And humans are fallible, selfish, and sometimes spectacularly misguided.
Becky Hill swore an oath to protect the integrity of the court. Instead, her actions forced the state to start from square one, costing taxpayers massive amounts of money and, tragically, dragging the victims' families through another excruciating trial.
It serves as a stark reminder that while Alex Murdaugh remains firmly behind bars for his financial crimes, the quest for a clean, legally sound verdict for the murders of Maggie and Paul is far from over. The system is self-correcting, but watching that correction happen in real time is messy, expensive, and deeply frustrating for the public.
It's the ultimate stress test for democracy. It forces us to ask if our constitutional principles are conditional based on who the defendant is, or if they are absolute.
Which brings us to a final, really complex thought that I want you to mull over as we wrap up this deep dive. The Murdaugh case forces us to confront a deeply uncomfortable reality about how our society operates. When a crime is as heinous as this one, and when the defendant is as widely reviled as Alex Murdaugh, there is a powerful, very human urge to want the justice system to act purely as an instrument of moral vengeance.
We just want the bad guy put away.
Right, and we don't care how it happens, but for the rule of law to mean anything at all, the process has to be flawless. It has to apply the exact same rigorous, sterile standards to the absolute worst among us as it does to the best, even if it means throwing out the conviction of a man that almost everyone believes is guilty.
Stay tuned and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next, because these are the stories that really make you think.
So ask yourself, what is more important to a functioning society? Ensuring a bad person is punished by any means necessary, or ensuring the government is forced to play strictly by its own rules to put them away? Because if you let the lab technician drop the sandwich in the petri dish just because you like the result, you can never really trust the science again. You've been listening to Starscope Report, where Jordan and Jamie uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.